Okay guys, welcome to another episode of Blue Abroad here. We are coming up to our third round matchup with the Sydney Swans, and I think the sample size of the season is still pretty small. We've only had 2 games. I've watched both of ours, I've watched both of Sydney's games, and it looms like an interesting matchup. The Swans, they're sort of in this transitional phase. These newcomers of theirs are coming up, and really they're looking forward to them taking the mantelpiece of the Bloods culture and whatnot. And we've obviously got our wave of youth, our midfielders, our forwards, and our defenders, who we're sort of just waiting until they can pop up with confidence and really get their careers going. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. We're playing at Marvel Stadium for the first time since it was rebranded Marvel Stadium. But I want to take you back to the last time we met. It was round 11, 2018. We played the Swans up at the SCG. It was an interesting period of time for us because we had just played Geelong, in Geelong, and I remember being a little bit worried about what that would mean for us. Obviously, Sydney and Geelong are 2 very senior sides, always in that finals hunt. But I thought we held our own pretty well. I remember Jack Silvani had come into the side after a few weeks in the VFL just to regain some form and some confidence, and I remember him playing a little bit throughout that midfield, and there was a little bit of a talk about us developing other skills of his, and he was able to come into the side against the Swans last year and kick his 2 goals, and he applied pressure, and it was actually a pretty good game from him. So I remember that one clearly. I was actually in Jordan at the time that the game was on, and I remember I did a tour through the Wadi Rum Desert, and I went and saw the old treasury, the ancient treasury in Petra, the ancient city. So that was a very interesting time for me. So I didn't really watch the game, really in depth, but I just remember, going through the podcast from last year and just sort of rehashing the memories. So, it was interesting. We were competitive until halftime. We were wearing our Indigenous jerseys, if you remember. The Swans kicked 5 straight goals in the third quarter to really blow the game open. And then the fourth quarter was a bit of a fizzer. It was sort of, we were neither here or there, and just sort of saw the game out. Rowe, I remember, played on Buddy and was just sort of outclassed throughout the night. And it's interesting. I mean, when I move on to thinking about what I'm excited about, I mean, the guys, we don't have the likes of Kerridge, O'Shea, Rowe, Lamb, who were in that same side last year. You start thinking about Mitch McGovern, Sam Walsh, and the likes who have come in. That's the first thing I'm excited about. I'm excited about a team that's going out there now and is a bit more competitive, a little bit more class, a little bit more talent, if you will. So I'm excited about that. I remember Paddy Dow, Samo, and Zach Fisher. They all had okay games last year. I thought Fisher was good in the matchup last year, but guys like Samo and Dow, they were still figuring their way out. I mean, especially Paddy Dow in his first year, playing his 10th game, I believe it was. And so I'm just looking forward to seeing where they've improved, because the midfield of the Swans is competitive. You've got Heaney that runs through there, Josh Kennedy, Papley goes through there at times. These big bodies, Luke Parker, and so I'm just looking forward to seeing how our boys have improved, and that sort of brings me, to the midfield battle, and that's something I'm really excited about. I think I go into games now much more optimistic that we'll be able to hold our own. I don't worry about our young midfielders anymore not being able to withstand the pressure. I think they're building and building. They're probably still a year or maybe 2 years away from, really giving me full confidence in dominating a midfield battle, but I'm looking forward to seeing it. Cripps and Kennedy will be right in there at the coalface. I would imagine that they'd be matched up on each other at times, and that's pretty exciting for a footy fan, let alone a Carlton fan. I think we can expose them with our pace. From what I've seen from Sydney in the last 2 weeks, they're lacking a spark. They're lacking some sort of spark. I thought Ronke, who came in just this past round, I thought he gave them a little bit of that, but they're still missing a little something. It could be, Isaac Heaney hasn't really played at his best, and that's definitely something I'm worried about. And he could be that spark, but Sydney are lacking a little bit of pace, a little bit of energy. I don't know, maybe it's just the whole marathon, not a sprint mentality of an AFL season. But I think from what I've seen from what we've done, when we've challenged Richmond, and we've challenged Port Adelaide, when we get going, we play with confidence, we use the corridor, I think we can really hurt Sydney. And I hope we can. So that's something I'm excited about seeing. And obviously, another game into Harry. He's looked great in the last few weeks. It's always good to follow up a performance with another solid outing. So yeah, looking forward to that. Mitch McGovern, another layer under his belt. He should be at full fitness. I think for me, not having watched Mitch throughout his whole career, but the way he was flying for some of those marks last week tells me that he's moving with confidence, and I think that's where we get the best of him. So looking forward to him, really taking the game by the scruff of its neck. And this is the kind of week where he does need to step up. Obviously Charlie goes out with, thankfully, is a relatively minor injury for what we were thinking about for a few moments there in that first quarter against Port Adelaide. So yeah, Mitch needs to, when a player like Charlie goes out, we need to step it up around him. Harry will do what he does, but Mitch, being the senior guy, I'm really looking forward to seeing him. I would put a little bit of expectation on him now. He needs to kick probably those 3 goals, maybe 4, but really just get in the contest and really lead from the front. So definitely excited about that. I think I'm mindful of individuals with the Swans more than what I'm mindful of them as a side. Me personally, I give them full respect. Sydney's. I love Sydney. I love their culture. I love the way they go about it. But from what I've seen, I'm going into this confident that we're going to win. I'll be tipping us this week. Like I said, I think the Swans will look a little bit sluggish or slow. Maybe just getting out of the blocks a little bit slower than some other finals contenders. And I think the jury's still out with the Swans. I'm mindful of Buddy, obviously. Rowe played on him last year and he kicked 3 goals. And the time before that, if you can cast your memory back that far, I think it was the last round of the season we played the Swans and Liam Jones played on Buddy and Buddy kicked 10. So we don't have a matchup who will go to Buddy and who we can say, yeah, they'll get the job done. And Marvel Stadium, the conditions kind of suit him. He played his way into form last week after a pretty poor round 1, but he's another one that's just a veteran and doesn't need a lot of running. He's a superstar. So I'm mindful of Buddy and what he can do if he gets off the leash. Jake Lloyd, I think he has to have a matchup. I've got him. I hate to say this because I've got him in my Supercoach side, but he's too good to be left alone. He's a super player. He's a serious talent. So I want to see somebody on him. And I think the other thing is when Sydney get on their run, it's going to happen. The momentum swings of the game. Again, I want to see us. How do we respond? I'm a little bit mindful of letting a 5 or 10 minute patch become a quarter. And we've had 2 goalless quarters in either game that we've played this season, and that's a bit of a concern. We need to try and condense the momentum swing when it goes in the opposition's favour. So I'm really mindful of that. And obviously, David King made a good point about the Bombers before they play the Saints. It's like when you are under pressure, when you get nervous, it's very difficult to play that free-flowing footy. Now, if we get down by 4 or 5 goals in this game, players start getting nervous, all of a sudden they take the safe option around the boundary as opposed to taking the game on. I'm mindful of that happening. I hope it doesn't, and I hope we have the mental resolve to push through that. But Sydney will come. They're a very good side, very experienced side. They've got plenty of premiership talent in there, and so I'm just mindful of that. Team selection will obviously Charlie will come out. He's reported to have been, I think it was a bone bruising in his knee, which is a great result, and he'll be missing what they say is 3 weeks. So Charlie will come out. I'd actually like to see Jack Silvani in the side. I think a little bit of the talk is around, should it be Levi, should it be Jack? I'm keen with Jack because Levi is a little bit one-dimensional. He's just a brute of a forward. I don't want him to get in the way of Harry Mackay. So I'm happy for Mitch McGovern to sort of move into a more prominent role. You have Harry in the goal square, and then you have Jack Silvani, who is versatile. He can run. He might not be fast, but from what he's done in the VFL in the practice matches so far, I mean, he's performed well. I think he's had 2 really good games, and I think he's earned he's sort of put himself in that position. Now, whether it's for Solo that comes out for Jack, or whether it's, I don't know how it's going to work. I think Jack will come in, and I think Jared Garland will come out. I think a team like Sydney, especially with their forward line, you cannot afford to have people who are not, really hardened. And I just don't get confidence when Garland's around the ball. I mean, I'm happy for him to go back. I'm not giving up on him, but it's more the fact of when he's on the park, when he's around the ball, when he attacks it, I'm not watching it with confidence. And it's as simple as that for me. I'm not having to dig at him. It's obviously a tough sport to play, it's a tough league to play in, and especially when you're in a new role. So let's not get on Jared Garlett, but I think, a guy like Matt Kennedy, who has had 30 touches and a goal in the VFL, is one game enough for us to say, yep, you're in? I think in this case it is, because I think, especially with the midfield battle, yes, I've spoken about Kennedy and Setterfield and, can they coexist? But with a team like Sydney, I think we can roll the dice with the 2 of them in the side. Reason being, Sydney aren't a very quick side, so it doesn't matter too much about the speed. And I still think with Dow, with Walsh, with Zach Fisher, there's enough speed in that midfield to still say that we have a quick transition from defense to offense. So yeah, those are the 2 that I'm looking at the moment. Charlie out and Jared Garlett out, and I'd bring in Jack Silvani and Matt Kennedy. I don't know about Cruiser's status. If he's fit, do we play him? I'm keen to see him going through the VFL. There's no rush. We don't need to rush Matty Cruiser into the side anymore. Phillips competes pretty well. It's probably the other thing I'm mindful of as well. I mean, the last 2 weeks, the Ruckman have really played well against us. Now, do you put that down to Phillips as a game system? I'm not really sure yet, but definitely something I'm mindful of. So yeah, that's how I would look at the team at the moment. It's still very early in the week, but those are the changes that I would personally be looking for. I'm going to predict us to win by 17 points. I think, we really need to get a reward for effort. I think our effort's been relatively good. I think we're pretty evenly matched in terms of, when you look at the form in the last fortnight. I think we are probably, I think we're pretty even. I mean, the Swans, you've got to give them credit. They played really well in patches last week against the Crows, and they really took it to the Crows. And so, yeah, I mean, but the thing is that they lost at home. So you sort of, where are they, where are we? I think we're pretty even. Yeah, it's going to be a hard matchup, but I just think the excitement of the win, I think the crowd, if we can get a good crowd there on the weekend, it'll go a long way to getting the energy up, and the conditions will be perfect, so there's no worry about the rain or anything like that. So Carlton by 17 points, and fingers crossed. What about you? What do you think? What are some of your changes? What are some of your thoughts on how we approach the game? If you have some insight on game style and whatnot, let me know in the comments below. Looking forward to having a chat, and let's do this. Go the Mighty Blues.